You are currently watching part 2 in a 3-part YouTube video series. So if you want to watch the first part, there's going to be like an annotation right here. If you want to watch that first 3-part series. And if you're wondering what's with the Santa hat, it's Halloween. I wear a Santa hat in all my videos because I love Christmas. Hey. Here's the tourist. The tourist. I've never flown before. It's kind of peaceful. Staring out of the little oval window to my right. Gosh dang it, it was the perfect time to think. I think when I'm in the bathroom, just sitting there, not even doing anything, thinking. Anyways, sorry, that wasn't in the story. I thought about the flight with my stepfather and my mom begging me not to take this trip. Sitting news articles about missing murdered locals. Thought about how I had pointed out the tourists hadn't had any trouble. Thought about how I might find happiness and never come back, which would make them a local, and then they could get killed. We landed in Cardiff. Hey, that's where Doctor Who was filmed. I believe International around 9 p.m. on time, so I decided to walk to my small hotel. After getting settled, I wasn't ready for sleep, so I decided to walk around for a bit. The streets surrounding my hotel were pretty enough. Flower gardens were along the sidewalks and clean streets, but the streets were just a little beyond. Oh yeah, I go. So the streets just be a little beyond were seedier than I prepared for. The bums were out, occasionally trying to gain my attention as I walked by, in hopes that the silly tourist had enough extra cash. The streets were lined with small shops, all of them closed, and some for good, as well as an unsavory-looking bar, all wide open. Okay, that's English. As I was entertaining the thought of dipping into one, different bars, all wide open. Okay, never mind. And charming, attractive Welsh man. Oh, I guess this character is female. This character's female. I didn't know. They didn't specify gender. I never know in these creepypastas. Welsh man with the false story of my grand. Okay, you gotta help me out, guys. What is that word? What is that word? My grand what? Just make a video saying that word, and I'll know. That way, next time this happens, I'll be like, oh, that's how you pronounce it. Sorry, back in America. Back in America. I heard a crash ahead of me. It was the sound of a young man, 20, if not a teen, landing on top of a trash can. Trash bin? That's literally what a trash can. Trash bin. I made a mental note to ask someone. Behind him, a young woman wielding a wooden bat. Someone's going through a breakup. And sporting enough tattoos and piercings to make my mom shake her head. Oh yeah, a tough breakup. Was yelling at him with a thick Welsh accent. That wasn't Welsh. About attempting to steal. Maybe not a breakup. Again. Steal again, by the way. The man ran off into the night, the woman yelling after him. The woman abandoned her verbal assault and began writing her trash can. Trash bin? That's the second time! Why is it doing that? Sorry. I keep interrupting the creepypasta. I think we both heard it at the same time. A primal sound beneath a gurgle, and the sound of feet pounding the damp cement. The young woman swung around just in time to catch the underside of a rabid, bloody man's chin. Of the rabid, bloody man's chin. Not any. The. His eyes rolled back for a moment before regaining his footing and resuming his attack. I started yelling for help and police. The girl started bashing the man's head as he tried to claw and gnash at her. A few steps out of the bar to catch the actions, and he immediately jumped on their phones. Oh, they spelled there right. Calling cops and taking pictures and videos. It wasn't until the man laid still, his head like hamburger meat. Don't make me hungry by grossing images. I'm hungry. I'm fat. Keep it for the creepypasta that the lady backed off, bloodied and shaking. I don't know if this part's supposed to be creepy. She just seems psychotic, and people will probably lock her up. I ran to her and grabbed her arm to keep her still. I asked if she was alright, and she yanked her arm from my grasp, muttering that she was fine. I just killed someone. Are you kidding? I'm not the one that's not okay. Well, I guess I just killed someone. The local police arrived a moment later, and I was pulled several directions for witness statements. Pulled like in different directions. Okay. Pulled in several directions for witness statements. After a dizzying list of questions, I accepted a ride to my hotel and only had enough reserved energy to shower and climb into bed. My nightmares were dark and full of rabid, bloody people trying to eat my flesh. So zombies. I woke up feeling as if my energy was drained while I slept. I could only stomach coffee as I thought about the previous night and the animalistic man, because he was kind of crazy too, covered in blood and attacking. Anyways, his dilated eyes and bloody mouth were enough to make me want to run home, but my curiosity about the young woman drug me out of my door. Drug me out of my door? I wanted to see if she was okay, and if she had seen what I remembered seeing. She had seen what... Okay, anyways. As I made my way through the old streets, I noticed they weren't so intimidating during the day. The bars were closed and the shops were open. A few people going in and out, little bells ringing. The bums were gone, likely run off by shop owners, and the streets had been swept. I found the woman's shop open, luckily. I walked in and wasn't quite expecting the scene. Deep-colored walls and a couple plush, dark velvet couches with a large skull-covered hookah, I guess, I don't know, pierced into the small side table. Racks everywhere, covered in clothes, purses, masks, and a lot of neon dark furry things, unidentifiable by shape. Surrounding the check stand was a case full of movie replica weapons, and little racks of buttons and patches. I heard the young lady call from the back that she would be out in a minute, and I followed the sound of her voice. As I walked up the archway to the back room, I noticed a small apartment. Before the blue view was blocked by the woman stepping through. Recognition loosened her smile. She turned slightly sour at my appearance. "Can I help you?" she asked. The tone in her voice suggested she didn't care to help me. I wonder if I should ask her about the trash can versus trash bin. Is that like a significant thing in this? Because that's like... thing. I'm sorry, the trash can versus trash bin thing. Is that like going to be a thing? Just to get the ball rolling, I decided instead to jump into it. That man last night. Did you see his eyes and bloody mouth? Or did I imagine that? I saw it. Why? Is that normal? Yes. All of us are born wild-eyed and bloody-mouthed. It's just most of us hide it well. She rolled her eyes and began unpacking boxes of clothing behind the register. I think she was hoping I would leave after she made it obvious I was being ignored. I'm not normally easily deterred, but my coffee had filled my stomach. My coffee filled my stomach The coffee that had filled my stomach, I'm going to say it like that. The coffee that had filled my stomach was starting to bother me. Yeah, but my coffee filled my... Oh, I goofed. But my coffee-filled stomach was starting to bother me. That's what it says. I just couldn't read it for some reason. And it occurred to me that I hadn't eaten in nearly 24 hours. Dang, I couldn't go that long. Like I said, I'm fat. I left without another word and decided to try the cafe a block away from my hotel. I still had so many questions about last night, but the banquet owner wasn't the best consultant? Yeah, consultant. I made a plan to talk to some of the bar pardons tonight. Whatever. Patrons. Yeah, my plan. I can't speak English. I can't read. My plan was interrupted by a screaming man just around the corner ahead of me. Another man came running from the corner, ashen-faced, checking over his shoulder as he passed me. I ran to screams and rounded the corner, only to get smacked in the face by the most horrific vision I had ever witnessed. Yes, that was the laundry, in case you heard that just then. Someone's doing laundry, drying. Hey, you know what? Good for them. Getting clothes done. It's like my dad rents different parts of the house. Anyways, a man and woman bent over a man's body, holding him down and ripping pieces of his flesh from his bones, shoving it in their mouths while the living man screamed in terror and agony. I could feel my coffee coming up, and I let out a little cry. It was enough to gain the attention of the devourers, and they eyed me for a moment with curiosity and hunger. The woman went back to her meal, but the man wanted to move to greener pastures as he lunged for me. I turned tail and ran, as fast as I could, back to the only place I knew. The woman met me with a scowl. I'm gonna censor this. What the heck do you want now? Yeah, heck, I don't say that word. I'm sorry. She asked as I slammed the door shut and spun the lock into place. What the feck do you think you're doing? I'm not kidding, that's a typo. What the feck? You know, she probably meant to say something, the author probably meant to say something else instead of feck. Oh, that was nice if they accidentally did that. If it was purpose, that was nice. Anyways, she shouted, "What the feck do you think you're doing?" In a man's voice. She shouted, grabbing her bat and heading for me. "No, wait!" That's capital letters. "There are more of those people out there. Please, I can't go back out there. We have to lock the doors." My defense was validated by immediate pounding and growling behind my back, which only intensified the woman's aggressive stature. "You brought them here?" UTWAT. Not gonna curse, sorry. Well, it's not curse, but it's not good. "Are you trying to get us both killed?" "They were eating a man, eating his skin while he was still alive." "What are they?" I yelled, over the din of the beasts just outside the thick wood door. I couldn't stop the steers, couldn't stop the tears brimming my eyes. The woman's features softened slightly at the sight of my tears, but her voice held the same tone. "Stop your sniffling. It's not helping anyone. Throw the locks on those doors. Throw the locks on those windows." She nodded to one side of the doors, and headed for the other, swinging down iron locks and pulling the window shut. I followed suit. I guess that's a thing. And bit back my tears. I struggled a little with the awkward locks I've never before encountered. I suited and bit back my tears while I struggled a little with the locks I'd never before encountered. Okay, never mind. I guess that makes sense. Eventually, I got all my windows locked and covered. When I turned around, the woman was back at her counter, hanging up and redialing the phone. "I can't get through to the emergency services. The line is engaged. Looks like we're on our own for the time being." I could feel the tears welling up again, and my stomach felt as if it was imploding. I couldn't tell if it was from hunger or anxiety now. I went and sat on the purple velvet couch and regretted not being able to appreciate the sandalwood smell and soft cushion. I guess the couch smelled nice. I'm talking so much I'm not catching my breath. I took a few deep breaths and tried to sort my thoughts. We needed a plan. I needed food. I decided to ask if she had the food when it occurred to me that I didn't even know her name. My name is Diana, I volunteered, hoping she would return a response with her name. She shot an annoyed look at me instead. That's nice. She didn't look like it was nice. What's your name? I asked. She gave an exaggerated sigh. Chloe, she said, obviously not wanting to have a conversation. I sat in silence for a while, afraid to ask for anything. Chloe disappeared to the apartment, but I was afraid to follow. Surviving meant not ticking. Every time I pause, and okay, what am I going to say now? That means that there's a word there that I'm not going to say. Ticking off my very edgy apocalypse partner. After a while, Chloe returned with 2 cups of tea, offering me one without speaking. I thanked her quietly and sipped it. I wasn't about to tell her I didn't like tea. I drank it anyways, and it helped my stomach a little. Chloe returned again, with 2 bowls of chili and some bread. I fought the urge to shove the food in my face as quickly as possible. I took great pains to eat normal-sized spoonfuls of chili and chew my bread. I thanked Chloe and received a curt welcome in return. The banging had stopped nearly an hour before, but the screams in the streets were still audible. I didn't want to look. Could we turn on the radio or something? I asked, hoping to drown out the noise. You want us to draw... Okay, either this is a typo or they meant to do that. You want us to draw attention to yourselves? Feck! It's the F word with an E in there. I'm not even joking. Look at that. Look at that. Feck that. I'm saying... You heard me. You can go outside and hold up a sign that says free food, but I'm staying quiet. I went back to shutting up and pulled my legs to my chest, tucking my chin between my knees. Sorry, there, that's better. I thought about the flight with my stepfather, about my mother's warning. That was my pursuit of happiness. I thought about my pursuit of happiness, how I might never come back. Chloe, do you think these things have anything to do with the stories about disappearing and murdered people that have been popping up lately? Maybe. Those stories were in the countryside, though, miles from here. We weren't too worried about it. Maybe they were just discovered in the city. It's much bigger. Well, maybe they just discovered the city. It's much bigger food source. I cringed. You're probably right. It doesn't change much, though. We don't know what's going on, or why, so I guess we'll just sit here and wait for the military to roll through. You think they'll come? I said hopefully. They always do, in the movies. The only place I've seen a thing like this before. That was fair, I guess, and the warmth of the food in my stomach made my eyes heavy. So I dripped it off. I asked, Chloe, is it called a trash can or trash bin here? Bin, she replied, and I fell asleep. Falling asleep in a creepypasta is always a sign of death. Though I've never seen zombies in a creepypasta before. I awoke in the evening to the sound of one of the windows shattering. Saw Chloe to my left leap off the couch and shake off sleep. She ran for her bat and began battering the bodies pushing through the curtains. One slipped through the left edge of the curtain, and I recognized the woman from the street. More bloody than before, she ran at me, hands clawed and mouth wide, emitting the same gurgling howl I heard the night before. I ran, my eyes darted for a weapon. I spied a replica hatchet from a movie I didn't recognize the name of, and snatched it up. I was immediately thankful for how solid it felt. I buried the hatchet in the woman's unblocked face, but she continued unaffected. My arm, however, certainly noticed the impact. It took a second to regroup before yanking my ill-chosen weapon from her skull. Oh, this sounds like a good zombie movie. I swung again, but my aim wasn't as true, and the blade slid past her cheek and hit her shoulder. I stumbled away, backed into the counter. There was a statue to my right, some kind of Greek or Roman goddess. Didn't have a lot of options. Could only hope it was heavy enough to damage. It was. As I swung as hard as I could manage, down on top of the cannibal's head. I swung, and she stumbled. Yes! I swung again and again, until she laid still, her skull cracked, and her brains looking like this morning's chili. That is not a good comparison. Chloe called me to the window, struggling with two men trying to push their way in. I jumped into the row, and we managed to beat them back. Chloe yelled for me to her, and grabbed hold of a large painting on the wall. It was a painting on wood, thankfully. We put it up to the window. With limited resources, we had to wedge it in, but it would do for the moment. A bloody Chloe, short of breath, stumbled back to her little apartment. This time I followed, feeling a bit more worthy. Chloe was leaned over the sink or kitchenette, washing the blood from her arms. I noticed the gash in her arm. "You're bleeding," I practically shouted, unsure of what else to do. "Well spotted," she said, sarcastic. She bit sarcastically, wincing a little as the water ran over her wound. I think I cut myself on the glass. Pushing the freaks out. "Grab me the alcohol from the cabinet, will you?" She nodded to a small separated room. She managed to a small separated room. It says so, but I read it like that. It's like, wait, what? She nodded to a small separated room, which turned out to be the bathroom. I found the alcohol and some rags, and we made a makeshift bandage. Chloe collapsed onto one of the couches and reached into the drawer table beside her. She pulled out a gun. The thing looked ancient and too big. It had one of those chambers that spun around. Ooh, I like those. Anyways. And a little hammer in the back. It reminded me of something a cowboy would draw on a stand-up. I like it. This was my grandpa's. "It shoots," in answer to my look of doubt. "Here," she said, handing it to me. "I'm obviously no good. Can barely lift it. I need to rest. You man the fort." She snorted something almost like a laugh, and with labored breath she drifted off. How much blood had she lost? When her breathing got heavy, I left her in peace. I figured I'd look around the shop a bit, and while I had time to find myself. You should know where you are. I found some matches and a pack of candles in a junk drawer near the sink. It was a good thing because the shop was nearly black with the curtains drawn and the window boarded up. I looked at the furry of things, I guess. First, there were vests, leg warmers, hats, and gloves. Some were glittery, and some lit up with rainbow LEDs, LEDs, I don't know. In the corner, there was a collection of latex clothing. Gosh, this creepypasta is long. Almost over. With hints of BDSM, I guess, is what it's supposed to be. BDSM. I decided to avoid that corner. One wall was adorned with gas masks, goggles, and masquerade masks. I tried on an elaborate white mask covered with feathers and pearls. Who buys this stuff? It obviously wasn't a Halloween shop. Hey, Halloween! I guess I'll never understand people. I heard Chloe moan a bit in the bedroom. I went to check on her. Before I made it to the dim-lit archway leading to the apartment, I heard a familiar grumble come from inside. My stomach dropped. My pace slowed, and I drew the gun, pulling back the hammer like they do in the TV. Chloe, I called quietly. I hesitated at the doorway. I was rewarded with a response, but the one I hoped for, as a, but it's probably supposed to be, but not the one I hoped for, as a wide-eyed, bloody-mouthed Chloe jumped in front of me. I reacted by pulling the trigger on the heavy pistol. The impact knocked us both backward, but I was faster to recover. Grabbing the door and swinging it shut on her, I grabbed a cushioned chair nearby and wedged it beneath the handle. Chloe howled and screamed from the other side, banging mercilessly on the door. Basically, our main character's dead. I mean, what? Unfortunately, her wild noises drew the attention of her beastly brethren in the streets, and then began assemble at the front of the store, pounding on the windows and doors and paint-covered holes. As the board fell from the sill, it ripped the curtain down with it, revealing a few howling silhouettes and an outline of streetlights. I was trapped. I fired at the shadows, knocking one back, and only stumbled from the kick. I was feeling a bit more confident now. Don't push your luck. And fired at another, barely losing my footing. I fired again, almost giggling as I hit one in the head, effectively exploding part of his skull, dropping him. As I sent another bullet flying, it dawned to me that I only had one bullet left. Any hope of ammo was trapped in the apartment with my short-lived companion, Doctor Who. As a handful more figures poured through the window, I ducked behind a rack in the darkness. I had to make a decision. Do I fire my last bullet and attempt to escape, or save myself from a long, painful death? Do I fire my last bullet and attempt to escape, or save myself from a long, painful death? As I weighed my options, I heard the gurgle noises multiply. Made a decision. With iron resolve, I pulled my legs to my chest, tucked my chin between my knees. I put the gun to my head, thought about my stepfather and mom. I thought about how I was never coming back. That's it. That's how it ends. Okay, now I'd like to point out real quick that when I was saving this to my computer, I noticed it said credit to Amanda Lawrence, so I figured I'd save that on here. Credit to Amanda Lawrence. So, yeah. And that was The Tourist. Gosh, this video was so long. I'm so sorry, guys. That was The Tourist.